Welcome, lovely chosen ones. Some individuals do not fear your authority. They are afraid that you will continue to survive scenarios meant to kill you, the chosen one. Let us be brutally honest. Your life has evolved into something that causes others to squint, mumble, and clutch their chests as if they are witnessing a plot twist in a movie they did not pay for. Every time you recover from something that should have killed you, people treat you as if you are linked to Houdini himself. The hilarious thing is that you're over here trying to mind your own business, drink water, and avoid the mayhem. But nonetheless, your presence continues to defy their expectations. Here's an actual fact. According to psychology research, individuals are more afraid of what they cannot anticipate than of things that have been proved hazardous. That explains the complete disarray around you. You don't move as they anticipate. You don't collapse when they expect you to. You don't remain in locations they said you'd rot in. Your perseverance defies the formula their thoughts depend on. To them, you're more than simply unpredictable. You are inexplicable. Let's keep things genuine. People began analyzing your life as if it were a scientific oddity the moment you escaped from the traps designed to keep you in place. They're reliving your narrative like, wait, how did they get back from that? They seek answers, but you continue to provide results. You continue to accomplish the things that society says need years, resources, and permission. However, you do it with insight, tenacity, and a divine element woven into your timing and suspense. Oh, believe me, they notice when you vanish for a while and then reappear. You elicit the same response as a horror movie figure who reappears stronger, calmer, and seemingly shining. That is why they gaze. That is why they whisper. That is why they fear you. Your life did not play out as expected. They're stuck on page 3 and you've already begun writing the sequel. And just to add a little comedy, some of your opponents have been pushing refresh on your demise for quite some time. They now resemble customer service representatives whose system keeps crashing. They're upset, puzzled, and ready to blame the universe for their upgrades. But the fact remains. You do what others believe is impossible not because you are magical but because you are connected, aware, and constructed to last. And it alone is enough to make even the most daring opponents gaze at you as if you are bending reality. This is why they treat you as if you were Houdini. This is why they are terrified. This is precisely what we're going to look at today. Number 1. They believed your life had bounds until you passed past the barriers they had constructed against you. They spent years attempting to contain you, building invisible cages with rules, expectations, and manipulations meant to keep you tiny. Every limitation, jab, and effort to set your limits was designed to make you predictable, manageable, and eventually breakable. They expected you would succumb to their plans since that is how everyone else acted. They assumed that life had boundaries for you in the same way that it did for them, but they failed to consider the fact that you refused to live within someone else's story. What they didn't realize was that the barriers they created were not just physical or situational. They were psychological, emotional, and spiritual. They believed that your development, survival, and achievement could be neatly contained and marked with their approval. They thought that if they created enough barriers, you'd disintegrate, vanish, or at least follow their rules. That's why your every action seems impossible to them. You didn't simply leave. You passed past their barriers as if they were not there. You did not bend, break, or stumble. You ascended, adapted, and developed the techniques they used to confine. You transformed them into lessons that improved your intuition, ignited your resilience, and fortified your determination. They are now looking in amazement at someone who refuses to accept limitations. They don't comprehend how you handle pressure that would destroy other individuals. They call it chance or magic because human reasoning cannot comprehend your freedom. You don't just survive. You flourish in ways that defy every expectation they had. They wanted you to be controlled, little, and predictable. Instead, they get a version that is invincible, unstoppable, and difficult to foresee. The terror people experience is not only about what you do. It's about the fact that nothing they created could stop you. Their control over you is an illusion. Your life is living evidence. Every time you overcome their efforts to trap or dominate you, it serves as a reminder that they overestimated themselves and, as a result, downgraded you. They believed your life had limitations. But your spirit never did. You're living proof that regulations only work if they apply to the wrong person. And as they see you transcend everything designed to restrain you, they can't help but suspect that their whole system of control is a farce. Number 2, your comebacks seem miraculous since they have no idea how many times you died inwardly and rebuilt from ashes. People described your achievements and capacity to recover from seemingly impossible defeats as amazing. They believe that luck is on your side or that events will always work in your favor. What they don't see and what scares them the most are the secret fights you waged while no one was looking. They have no idea how many times your mind shouted to stop. Your heart felt crushed and your soul bore wounds too deep to describe. They only see the polished image of you who emerges from turmoil apparently unhurt. And to them it seemed inconceivable. Every time you come back stronger, it's because you've already overcome internal conflicts that most people can't possibly imagine. You've been forced to rebuild yourself repeatedly, taking away what was weak, learning from each cut and developing intangible resilience. Your adversaries believe that devastation destroys a person, but they fail to see that your breaks do not break you. They purify you. Each difficulty that should have devoured you instead served as fuel for your intuition, attention, and capacity to act in ways that seem almost supernatural to others. Your strength does not come from avoiding suffering. It's about tolerating it and transforming it into progress that no one sees coming. This is why your comebacks seem unrealistic to them. They believe it is chance or luck, while in fact it is a mix of unshakable tenacity and a profound knowledge of oneself that they will never have. Every challenge you meet, every trap they build, and every effort to hold you back has only taught you to reply with precision and strength. They are terrified not because you are unstoppable. They're terrified because they know they couldn't withstand what you've gone through. It is not magical to emerge from a challenge appearing calm, focused, and unshakable. It's evidence of how many times you've been broken within and chosen to rebuild. You've perfected the art of survival in ways others don't even realize. And that mastery frightens them because it exposes their vulnerability and demonstrates that what they formerly thought a weakness has always been your hidden weapon. Your ascent is not random, it is inevitable. And that inevitability is what makes you feel invincible. Third, people fear you because you are a problem solver. You were never trained for this. You realize that the reason people label you unpredictable or Houdini isn't because you pursue the impossible. It's because you function at a level that most people don't even realize exists, whilst others spend years studying, reading, and seeking advice. You automatically understand how to navigate turmoil and discover answers in circumstances that seem like traps. Your thinking does not obey the rules. They have memorized, which throws them off. It frightens them because they can't map your movements, and being unable to map someone seems like magic. Magic is always feared. Your adversaries believe that life operates according to their reasoning, and that issues should be addressed in the methods they've been taught, using the processes and approvals they're familiar with. You disregard the directions. You recognize the heart of the issue and deconstruct it at its source. You improvise clearly, act precisely, and move silently while the rest of the world tries to figure out what's going on. They see your acts and fear since there is no formula for replicating your outcomes. There is no blueprint that they can imitate. There are no shortcuts for catching up. Your genius is more than simply skill. It's an instinct developed by every trial, trap, and situation in which you're left to fend for yourself. It's not just about talent. It's a vision. You don't just fix issues. You predict issues before they occur. You behave in ways that are unnoticeable to people who depend on rules, processes, or consensus. Others see this unpredictability as hazardous because it undermines their feeling of control. When individuals are unable to manage a situation, they feel powerless. And impotence creates terror. The fact is that you were schooled not by manuals or professors, but by life itself. They couldn't believe it when you responded with a solution in the roughest schools, under the most rigorous circumstances. It's a reminder that their systems are only as powerful as the brains they occupy. And your thinking doesn't follow those rules. That's why your problem-solving abilities seem miraculous. And that's why they can't tolerate seeing you succeed. They're not terrified of your actions. It's how you always seem to know what to do. Number 4, they resent the fact that their whole support structure was unable to prevent what you accomplished on your own. Your adversaries had one advantage. They felt you would fail. Numbers. They relied on one another, talked in groups, planned in circles, and formed vast networks in the belief that their combined effort would be sufficient to halt your development. They were convinced that a unified front could destroy someone who did not have the same level of support. However, when you achieve without any support, approval, or backing, they depend on humiliation, which hits them worse than failure. People underestimate the strength of someone who is used to standing alone. When life compels you to sort things out without any safety net, it hones your intuition. It teaches you unrivaled resilience and strength. You learn talents out of need, which they didn't believe you have since they felt solitude was a weakness. Instead, your seclusion served to uplift you. You learn to think clearly, act autonomously, and move without waiting for permission. They are surprised since they are used to collaborative efforts. You're accustomed to self-mastery. Their resentment stems from the realization that no matter how many people they rallied, how many falsehoods were spoken, or how many hurdles were thrown in your road, you still broke through, and your triumphs are not diluted or shared. They are totally yours. Your triumphs do not stem from groupthink or collective power. They stem from internal alignment, tenacity, and the capacity to overcome obstacles without audience approval. That is what fires them. Your independence reveals something they do not want to confront. They are only powerful when surrounded. They are unable to function without their groups, cliques, and alliances. They speak large while they're in a group, but break down when they have to stand alone. Meanwhile, you've been working quietly and independently to create a solid foundation that doesn't need external reinforcement. That's why your achievement affects people differently. It contradicts everything they've built their identities on, forcing them to face their dependence. The fact is that your victory alone did not just disturb them. It humiliates you in their eyes, since nothing is more scary to insecure individuals than someone who does not require what they rely on for existence. Your seclusion shattered their whole system, and it's a wound they can't conceal. Number 5, you frighten others because you discern motivations before they ever speak. You have a knack of reading people that makes them uncomfortable, even when you don't want to. You notice the tiniest changes, the hesitancy in their tone, the shift in their energy, and the little contradictions that slide through their words. You detect things before the other person is aware they have revealed themselves. It's not like you're seeking for something. It's just how your mind works. You record activity with a level of awareness that others cannot fake, avoid, or control. That alone is enough to make some people uncomfortable around you. Most individuals go through life hoping that their objectives remain concealed. They employ charm to camouflage envy, excuses to hide shame, and forced compassion to conceal contempt. But none of this works for you. You're not fooled by polished smiles or slick words. You don't fall for scripted words or well-staged presentations. Before the speaker finishes speaking, you may discern the reasons that are driving their conduct. And since you take it up so easily, they feel vulnerable in ways they are not used to. To them, your perception seems otherworldly. You pick up on the truth in the same manner that others do with sound. You do not require evidence or confession. Human conduct is a confession. The pattern discloses the motivation before the mouth creates the justification. That level of understanding is intimidating, particularly to those who profit from uncertainty or deceit. Someone who is unable to lie to you cannot control you. When they cannot manipulate you, they are unable to control you. When they are unable to manage you, they become afraid of you. Some may attempt to characterize you as odd, intense, too deep, or too suspicious because it is simpler than admitting they cannot hide from you. They like those who look aside, remain silent, and go along with illusions. But you do not do that. You do not pretend to ignore what is directly in front of you. You don't hide your awareness to make others feel comfortable. Your clarity shines in a world when most people choose darkness. And that's why you scare them. Not because you are dangerous, but because you are alert. You can see what they attempt to hide. You can feel what they are attempting to conceal. And you comprehend their hopes. Nobody realizes that's both a gift and a danger to someone who is putting up a front. Number 6. Your survival makes people uneasy since they know they would have given up instantly in your scenario. What worries people the most is not your achievement. It's the strength you needed to get here. Everyone understands when they've reached their limit. They are aware of the scenarios that would have crushed them and pushed them over the brink. They would not have survived these events if their sanity had been intact. When people look at you and understand you've been through experiences that would have wrecked them instantaneously, they're forced to face a reality they'd rather ignore. Your basic strength greatly exceeds their maximum threshold. People evaluate you based on their own frailty. They expect you to collapse where they would collapse. They believe you will respond, break down, or give up in the same manner they would. So they worry when you don't, when you ascend, when you remain calm, and when you keep on track. They couldn't understand how someone who has been under 10 times the strain can still stand with clarity. They attempt to excuse, reduce, or pretend it wasn't that terrible since accepting the reality hurts their ego. They know they wouldn't have survived your storyline, and that knowing makes them feel inferior in ways they aren't ready to face. Your survival reveals their boundaries, which most people are uncomfortable confronting. Humans prefer to feel they are strong, but when they see someone who has survived through a storm, they can't see themselves entering. Even the prospect of being in your shoes overwhelms them. You didn't just survive. You have adapted and developed. You didn't just endure. You learned and developed as you continued on. They can't even replicate internal bleeding. And this is what makes them anxious. To them, your existence seems unjust. As if you were designed with a distinct kind of wiring. They don't understand how you continue to operate, love, and think coherently despite bearing responsibilities that would have broken them on day one. They refer to it as tenacity, luck, heavenly protection, or unexplained resilience. But deep down they realize it's something quite different. You are living evidence that endurance does not need muscle. It's about the soul. And your soul has survived. Their soul would not have made them through. That's why your survival isn't merely praised. It is feared. Number 7. Your spirit does not violate the principles of reality. It dispels the illusions they believed were genuine. People look at your life and believe you're twisting reality. They believe you are accomplishing things that should not be possible. The outcomes do not make logical sense. Results that circumvent the typical difficulty. However, the reality is considerably simpler and far more uncomfortable for them. You are not defying reality at all. You're breaching the artificial rules they've based their whole lives on. You are not working outside of the rules of life. You are functioning outside of the anxieties and preconceptions that they have accepted as law. And the disparity is what shocks them to the core. Most individuals go through life believing in limitations that were imposed on them long before they questioned anything. They inherit doubts from their surroundings, anxieties from their upbringing, and insecurities from society, and they accept it all as true. They structure their lives around limits that never existed. So when someone like you walks up, refusing to submit to the imagined limits they revere, it upends their worldview. They have no idea how to deal with someone who does not share their conceptual framework. Your supposed miracles are merely the result of refusing to be programmed. You reject dead-end thinking. You do not accept ceilings that exist just because everyone else has decided not to push beyond them. You do not allow collective fear to dictate your path, and since you do not regard restrictions as sacrosanct, you go beyond them with a confidence that seems supernatural to those who still believe in them. Your entire presence questions everything they believed was permanent, definitive, and unchanging. When you succeed in areas that people thought were impossible for you, it compels them to reconsider their own self-imposed restrictions. When you overcome adversities that should have ended you, it demonstrates that their notions of limitations were never based in reality, but rather in fear. Nothing scares a person more than understanding they've been living in a cage with the door open the whole time, and nothing threatens them more than someone walking out. You did not disrupt reality. You dispelled the fantasy they mistaken for reality. And once someone realizes that freedom is attainable, they can never deny it. This is why your spirit frightens them. Not because you are impossible, but because you are evidence of the impossible. It was always a falsehood. Number 8. They despise the fact that you don't require permission, approval, or agreement to move. Independence upsets others because it reveals how much they need on others merely to function. Most individuals cannot take a single step without first determining who approves, who agrees, who is watching, and who may condemn them. Their confidence was borrowed. Their judgments and identities are impacted by the crowd's responses. You don't behave like that. You move based on instinct, conviction, and clarity. You act because you feel compelled to, not because someone gestured in your way. That type of self-governed confidence is really unusual. Things constantly cause unease. People are unaccustomed to someone who does not seek for permission. They're used to hesitancy, second-guessing, and groupthink. They expect you to seek affirmation just as they do when you don't. Even in circumstances when others might freeze, they are outraged. Your autonomy emphasizes their independence. It demonstrates how often people limit themselves, postpone their aspirations, and give up power to unimportant ideas. Your fearlessness becomes a mirror, and most people despise mirrors that reflect the truth. Your movements are not propelled by applause, making your development unpredictable. You don't need a cheering squad to begin, and you don't need permission to continue. You execute quietly, firmly, and without asking others to grasp your vision. The world adapts to you, not the other way around. And that type of energy disturbs individuals who have spent their whole lives looking for reassurance. They don't understand how you believe in yourself enough to take chances that they wouldn't do even with a complete committee behind them. And this is where the animosity comes from. Your independence reveals the extent of their dread. Your choices serve as a reminder of all the possibilities they missed because they were too preoccupied asking permission. Your confidence shows what they could have done if they hadn't been so concerned about who may disagree. They're not only envious of your independence, they are intimidated by it. You become a danger just by moving without a throng. You are not swayed by views and you do not disintegrate under quiet. You generate your own momentum. You create your own affirmation. You create your own lane. That kind of self-confidence is something they've never achieved, which is why your presence changes them more than your success would. Number 9, they only know how to repeat patterns, so your capacity to adapt seems magical. People are afraid of what they cannot imitate, and your growth reveals a fact they have been ignoring for years. They're not living, they're repeating. You do not adjust since life is simple for you. You adjust because your spirit will not perish in the same spot. It was hurt. You innovate where others recycle. You notice their reactions. You refine where they recur. Your adaptability is not the same as genius. It is consciousness. It is the capacity to take a hit, internalize the lesson, and reshape the whole battlefield without requesting further time or pity. Meanwhile, they cling to their previous identities like comfort blankets. They do not grow. They have a rehearsal. They do not develop. They run the same script with various justifications. They see your movement as supernatural since their minds ceased growing years ago. They mistake your flexibility for magic because they have never encountered life outside of their comfort zone. They refer to your development as chance, mystery, or coincidence, since recognizing you made it would require them to realize how much of their own lives they've given up to fear. The fact is that what they deem impossible is merely something they were frightened to try with sincerity. What they refer to as overnight is a portion of your trip that they have never experienced. What people term magic is the product of perseverance that they have never developed. Your adaptability demonstrates spiritual sloth, mental rigidity, and emotional paralysis. They've spent their whole lives hiding behind normal, and that is why they are judging you. You are proof that restrictions are self-made. You did not breach the rules. You just quit following the illusions. Number 10. When you walk away from disaster as if nothing occurred, people begin murmuring. People expect trauma to leave a fingerprint. They anticipate devastation to distort your personality, shatter your confidence, and leave you visibly shattered. So when you survive what was intended to obliterate you and emerge with your clarity intact, it upends their whole idea of how reality operates. It is not typical to recover from betrayal with better sensitivity. It is unusual to emerge from sabotage with more insight than when you began. And it's not usual to negotiate traps as if you knew where they were before you went into the battlefield. Average individuals break down under emotional stress because they were never prepared for it. They mistook fright for danger. They mix fear with insight. They see defeats as a part of their identity. But you're constructed on a different design, one that challenges their beliefs about what happens after destruction. You don't just recuperate. You decipher the experience. You extract the pattern. You save the lesson and then walk away as if the storm were just a classroom you outgrew. This is why people began whispering. How did they withstand that? Why do they seem stronger? Why are they not broken? Because the truth scares them. You disrupt the emotional cause and effect loop that ordinary people follow. They predict a trauma breakdown. They anticipate treachery, bitterness. They anticipate sabotage, downfall. They anticipate traps and humiliation. However, you go away with your peace, strategy, and spirit still intact. And now they have to reevaluate all of their assumptions about you. Instead of acknowledging they overestimated your strength, insight, and spiritual wiring, they choose for the simplest explanation. It must be magical. It must be supernatural. It must be luck. Because if they accepted the truth, you would have mastered yourself to a degree they had never tried. They'd have to face their own limitations, stagnation, and spiritual immaturity. You do not walk away from disaster as if nothing occurred. You walk away as if everything occurred for you. That amount of inner mastery seems unachievable to people who think pain has the last word. A number. You're tranquil. The most terrifying thing is being under immense pressure. The majority of individuals react to stress with noise. They panic, overreact, lose their composure, and show their flaws without being pushed. Stress shows their fragility immediately. But you are wired differently. When the strain increases, you do not lose yourself. You become more like yourself. Your ideas sharpen rather than disperse. Your emotions will stabilize, rather than erupt. And your intuition moves forward like a guide who only appears when the space is tight. Your calm is not passive. It indicates that you've gone through enough storms to understand your internal weather. You don't operate out of fear. You operate with awareness whilst others drown. In the moment, you begin calculating, observing, and perceiving patterns that the normal person cannot perceive. That is why opponents cannot tolerate it. They depend on chaos to prevail. They rely on emotional responses to exert control. They anticipate you to crumble on cue, allowing them to claim victory with no effort. However, when you do not break, shout, or come apart as planned, they are left vulnerable. Your calmness exposes their lack of discipline. Your quiet emphasizes their frailty. Your lucidity under pressure demonstrates how quickly others can be pushed off balance while you stay stable. It compels people to face an unpleasant situation. You are not playing the same psychological game that they are. They work via manipulation, tension, and emotional traps. You work with alignment, intuition, and inner power. They want you to panic so that their techniques make sense. They need you to be loud so that their strikes can be hidden. They want you shook so they may feel dominating. Instead, your quiet becomes the loudest sound in the room. Not the cliché type of quiet. The type that proves you can't be moved. The sort that conveys your thoughts. Tracking, choosing, and preparing. And that scares them. Because someone who remains calm throughout an assault is more likely to know how it will finish. You become unpredictable for them. And manipulable. Untouchable. Because pressure won't break you. It displays your true strength. A number. They're afraid because every time they forecast your demise, you come back with a new version of yourself. They weren't expecting your enemies to be more than intimidated by your strength. They are fatigued by your revolution. Every time life strikes you, everyone believes it will be the fatal blow that puts you out. They whisper. They wait. They wait for the moment you break so they may claim, "I knew it." But as soon as the dust settles, you appear again. Not weaker or broken, but sharper than you were before. And this is what keeps them on edge. You do not return to the same version of yourself that was assaulted the previous time. You return with enhancements. They did not include this in their preparations. A new level of discipline and emotional intelligence. A new degree of spiritual harmony and strategy. To them it seems strange. They don't understand how someone can go through suffering, betrayal, sabotage, and disappointment and yet emerge with new talents that weren't there before. It makes people uncomfortable because it reveals something they work hard to conceal. They do not grow. They do not transform. They do not develop. They stick to the same behaviors and anxieties. Year after year, the thinking remains the same. So when people witness you change yourself after a crisis, it seems like a challenge to their belief system. If you can change, it implies they may have to. And the truth hurts. What scares them most is that their assaults do not weaken you. They accelerate you. Chaos becomes your training field. Opposition becomes your honing stone. Setbacks become your toolkit as they plan to break you. They unintentionally become part of your evolutionary process. They are contributing to your growth without recognizing it. Your resilience perplexes them because it contradicts the script they expected you to follow. Most individuals crumple under pressure. The majority of folks remain injured. But you transform wounds into insight. Losses become leverage while failures become fuel. They keep waiting for your demise, but all they see is a series of comebacks that propel you forward. Tom, you are the only individual whose destruction does not result in ruin. It leads to transformation. And that is why they fear you. You don't just withstand the storm. It causes you to develop. A number. Your life disrupts their sense of cause and consequence. Your adversaries can't take the fact that everything they calculated, assumed, and thought about how life should operate has entirely disintegrated when it comes to you. They used a simple formula. Hurt someone and watch them fall. Sabotage someone and watch as they disintegrate. Undermine someone's path and watch it crumble. That's the rationale they believed. That's the blueprint they were raised with. They were assured that the system would also apply to you. However, you turned out to be the unexpected exception. They targeted you with the idea that their acts would disrupt your life. Instead, those events became pivot points that propelled you to greater heights. They anticipated such manipulation would confuse you. It made you wiser. They anticipated that their treachery would break your trust. It improved your judgment. They imagined their absence would make you weaker. It made you autonomous in ways they did not believe you were capable of. Their failure was more than simply disappointing. It was destabilizing. It contradicted the fundamental cause and effect transformation paradigm that they felt governed the universe. What scares them the most is the prospect that they were never the powerful influence in your life that they thought themselves to be. They saw themselves as impediments, giants, and dangers. You should be fearful. Then life revealed the truth. They were stepping stones, catalysts, and unintentional contributors to your advancement. Every bad thing they planned for you failed and returned to them instead. You went away with enhancements you did not ask for. I didn't beg, and I certainly didn't owe them anything. You move energy without pushing it. You change circumstances without disclosing it. You ascend in ways that make others wonder whether the cosmos is rigged in your favor. It disturbs them because it demonstrates something their ego refuses to accept. You are linked to a flow that they cannot alter or disrupt. You rely on time they cannot see. You get assistance from worlds they don't believe in. Your life challenges the reasoning of those who rely on predictable results. Nothing worries an adversary more than discovering their weapons aren't weapons. They were promotions masquerading as assaults. You did not just avoid the harm. You used the harm to your advantage. And this disrupts their grasp of all they thought they understood. A number. They realize you aren't doing the impossible. You're doing something others were too terrified to try. What worries your foes isn't that you're superhuman. It's because you're willing. You approach the things people avoid. You embrace difficulties. They make excuses for you and take risks that they talk themselves out of before ever attempting. And every time you do something they thought was impossible, they dismiss it. It drives them to face the reality they've been avoiding. The only reason they never reached such heights was because they lacked the confidence to climb. Your life casts an unsettling light on their reluctance. They see you disrupting the patterns that have kept them captive. Others see you taking big moves where others simply tiptoed. They observe you changing your mentality while they keep rehashing the same narrative from 5 years ago. Your development becomes a mirror from which they cannot escape. It represents the potential they stifled with excuses, fear, sloth, and comfort. It reveals how much of their existence was based on avoidance rather than aspiration. They nickname you Houdini because it allows them to pretend your development is magic rather than discipline. It's simpler for them to label you as magical than to confess you were just bold enough to accomplish something they didn't. If they claim you are supernatural, they are not required to recognize that they, too, might have transformed if they were ready to pay the price. Your discoveries concern them because they unravel their symbol narrative, revealing the true tale. I will not. Every risk you take reminds them of the ones they refused. Each advancement you make reminds them of the versions of themselves they abandoned. Every time you reinvent your life, they are reminded of the times they chose comfort over advancement. That's why they take your accomplishments so personally. Not because you harmed them, but because your presence reveals the boundaries they imposed on themselves. What they refer to as the impossible was never impossible. They lacked the confidence to attempt. But you did. And they realize it's the only difference. They aren't terrified of your might. They are terrified of discovering they may have had it as well. Conclusion. The reality is simple. However, most people will never perceive it clearly. You are not just surviving. You are rewriting the rules. Every stride you take, every trap you avoid, and every problem you turn into an opportunity for progress serves as a reminder that the constraints others worship were never intended for you. You do not conform to the circumstances. It causes you to develop. You do not break under pressure. You become sharper, smarter, and stronger. And those who sought to limit, control, or belittle you, you can only watch them murmur in uncertainty because your life reveals realities about themselves that they were not prepared to confront. Your strength is not loud or obvious. It's subtle, unwavering, and firmly ingrained. You've been forged in fires they didn't realize existed. And every scar, every moment of perseverance, has become the blueprint for your unstoppable power. What scares you the most is not your strength. You live without fear, without validation, without permission. You take chances they can't envision, make movements they wouldn't dare to try, and convert assaults intended to harm you into tools for your climb. Your life becomes a mirror, reflecting their uncertainty, fear, and complacency. And that introspection causes them to face a fact they've spent their whole lives avoiding in every instance when others predicted your failure. You proved them wrong in every situation where they believed their rules would keep you captive. You broke free. Every challenge, treachery, every effort to limit or control only fueled your progress. You are live evidence that resilience, boldness, and clarity have much more influence than numbers, manipulation, or fear. Your path is more than simply survival. It is about change, elevation, and the irresistible energy of a spirit that refuses to be limited by the constraints imposed by others. Remember that your narrative inspires. It rattles and unsettles because it challenges the current quo. Every time you are underestimated, it fuels your next climb. You do not merely live. You flourish in ways that cause the cosmos itself to bow to your will. And that, above all, is what makes you genuinely untouchable. If this message spoke to you and reminded you of the power you have inside, subscribe to the channel to remain connected with material that uplifts and awakens your inner strength. If you want to feel unstoppable like this video, comment here to share your victory story with someone who needs to be reminded of their true power. Your energy counts, your narrative matters, and your ascension is unavoidable. Stay unstoppable. God bless you.